Welcome on board, Chosen One. You didn't just survive the fire. You walked out of it with the matchbook, the blueprint, and a grin that said, "Try me again." The silence around you isn't awkward. It's calculated. It's heavy. It's loaded. Because everyone around you knows one thing for sure. Now, you're not saying everything you know, and that's what terrifies them. They expected you to fold, to cry, to explain, but instead you stood there like a calm storm that already finished destroying everything that needed to go. Now you've got the entire room on edge, watching your every move like it's their last warning. And it might be. Let's get one thing clear. The reason they keep running their mouths isn't confusion. It's damage control. They know you clocked the lies. You saw the betrayal. You clocked every fake smile, every switch up, every snake that slithered with a human face. But instead of calling them out, you went quiet, and that's what flipped the panic switch in their brain. They can't figure out your next move, so they obsess over your last one. Pause and pay it back. If you're riding this way with me, hit that like button and subscribe. This ain't just content, it's the resistance. Let's amplify this message together. Back to it. You didn't get quiet because you gave up. You got quiet because you gave up. And now your silence is so loud it's got people hearing their own guilt echo back at them. Every hallway they walk through, they're scared your shadow's in it. Every room they enter, they wonder if you already left your mark. You didn't burn bridges. You let them collapse under their own weight while you watched from the other side. That's villain behavior. That's your behavior. Now, you want to know why they're gossiping, like their lives depend on it? Because in their world, they do. In the mind of someone guilty, silence is lethal, and you become a walking truth serum, the kind of presence that makes people confess things you never asked, the kind that walks into a room and triggers flashbacks in people who thought you forgot. That's the power of someone who observes without reacting. You study while they stumble, and the wildest part? You don't even speak on what you know. You let it simmer. You let it sting. You let them rot in the fear of what you might say one day. And that's what keeps your name in their mouths. Not love, not hate, fear. Here's the shift they never saw coming. You were the underestimated one, the loyal one, the quiet one, the one they thought they could lie to, sabotage, or step on. But plot twist, you're the final boss now, and they've already used all their ammo. The reason they can't stop talking about you isn't because you're unpredictable. It's because you're terrifyingly consistent. They know how you move now. You see patterns. You read energy, you break down motives like a coder raker, and you do it without blinking. It's psychological warfare, and you didn't even have to fire a shot. People started to notice it when you didn't flinch, when they expected you to beg for clarity and you offered silence instead, when they tried to provoke you and you smirked like you already knew where the story ended. That's what made them realize, hold up. This one ain't confused, this one's just holding back. Let me give you a quick story. Back in the day, they laughed at you for overthinking, for being quiet, for making stuff up in your head. Now they quote your words like scripture and steal your style like it's gold. That same intuition they mocked, they're praying they develop half of it. But it's too late. This wasn't downloaded. It was earned through betrayal, isolation, and straight-up war. You've been through the kind of stuff that either breaks people or builds monsters, And you didn't break, you evolved. You're no longer the character in their story, you are the story. And they can't stop talking about you because they finally realize something they refused to accept for years. You were right. Right about who they were. Right about what they were doing. Right about the fake support, the jealousy, the games. You saw it all and kept quiet. You didn't need to expose anyone. They exposed themselves trying to silence you. So now they study you like you're the threat because you are. Not in a violent way, in a truthful way. You're the mirror they can't avoid, the reflection they hate, the one that doesn't lie. And in a world addicted to pretending, your silence is the loudest scream they've ever heard. Welcome to this new level. You're not the hero they asked for. You're the villain they created, the one they can't control, can't predict, and can't replace. And now you're done holding back. Let's talk. N.A., you chosen one. Yeah, the one they keep whispering about behind closed doors. The one who sees everything but says nothing. You ready to go deeper into why your silence is setting the whole room on fire? Because we're just getting started. If you've ever felt that eerie shift in how people treat you, like they're suddenly too careful, too loud, or too fake, you're not imagining it. They know you see right through them. And trust me, once you understand why, everything starts clicking. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you're ready to stop shrinking and start owning the power of knowing more than you reveal. This isn't just a breakdown, it's a blueprint, a full decode of why your presence alone is a disruption to their comfort. And now, let's break it down step by step. If you're truly one of the chosen, you'll feel it in your bones. The pull to stay till the end. The need to understand exactly why they talk about you like you're a walking secret they can't unlock. Let's get into it. Number one, they flinch. Because you're the one who saw through their mask and said nothing. Nothing scares a liar more than the one who knows the truth and stays silent. They thought they were putting on a show, a well-rehearsed, carefully constructed act they expected you to buy. But you didn't clap. You didn't boo either. You just watched. And they felt that. You saw right through the costume, straight to the coward behind it. And what did you do? Nothing. You didn't expose them. You didn't scream. You just kept walking like you already knew how the story would end. And that right there, that's what haunts them. You were never loud. You never had to be. You let your intuition do the talking and your silence do the cutting. That's what makes you dangerous. Not that you know the truth, but that you live with it while they try to bury it. They thought you were passive. They thought you'd beg for closure, cry for clarity, chase for answers. But instead you gave them the one thing they never prepared for. Distance with no explanation. You ghosted their nonsense without warning, and it wrecked their fragile little ego. They're terrified because you spotted the crack in their voice when they lied. You caught the over-explaining, the fake just checking in, the sudden compliments that only came when they felt your energy leave. And you clocked all of it with no reaction. Like a villain in a room full of fakes, watching them perform with masks that don't even fit right. You didn't confront them because you knew the truth didn't need defending. You let them rot in it. And now they talk loud, non-stop, desperate, scrambling to rewrite the story before it fully collapses. Not because you did anything, but because you didn't do what they expected. You didn't give them a scene. You didn't feed their ego. You starved the whole system quietly. And now they're choking on their own words, while trying to guess what you know, how much you saw, and when it'll hit them back. People who live fake lives panic around real ones. That's a law. In you, chosen one, you're the realest thing they've ever met. A walking exposure, not because you try to be, but because you exist at a level they can't reach. You see patterns in chaos. You hear the motive behind the message. You read silence like it's a language. And no matter how clean they try to dress their lies, your perception strips it bare. Let me tell you what most people will never say out loud. Liars hate the ones who pay attention. Because attention is evidence. It's memory. It's pattern recognition. It's the thing that turns coincidence into court. And your mind, it doesn't forget. You might forgive, but they know you didn't miss it. And every time you walk into a room, that quiet awareness follows. That's why they avoid your eyes. That's why they stutter. That's why they can't stand silence when you're near, because they know what it means when you go quiet. You became the mirror they couldn't smash. And every time they look into your presence, all they see is what they tried to hide. They wanted to be in control, but they gave up the reins the moment they realized you were 2 steps ahead, maybe more. The chosen ones don't need receipts. They are the receipt. You are the reason their mask slips when no one else notices, because your presence demands authenticity. Even if they don't have it in them, they never plan for someone like you. Someone who's calm, observant, and so damn certain of what they feel that it makes others second guess their whole identity. You made them paranoid just by existing. That's power. And here's the twisted part. They thought you would notice. They thought they were clever. They thought their manipulation, their sudden mood swings, their fake support would go over your head. But you saw it all. You just smiled and filed it away in the back of your mind. Not for revenge, not for drama, just for clarity, because you already knew they weren't going to last. You've been built different from day one, not just emotionally, but psychologically, spiritually, energetically. You're not here to blend in, and your brain doesn't function on surface level nonsense that makes people uncomfortable, especially those who rely on performance. You ask yourself, why do people act weird around me? Why do they overshare then backtrack? Why do they panic when I say nothing? Because they know you've seen behind the curtain and you never looked away. You want motivation? Here it is. The fear you trigger is proof of the truth you carry. The gossip, the whispers, the fake smiles, it's all a confession. They're confessing that your silence shook them. They're confessing that you saw something in them they never wanted to admit. They're confessing that you hold more power than they ever gave you credit for. Don't let that shake you. Let it fuel you. Every word they speak is a badge of confirmation. Every rumor is a scream for relevance. Every insult is just a desperate attempt to shift attention from their own guilt. They want the world to question you before it starts questioning them. But that's the thing. You don't chase validation anymore. You own the energy. You walk into rooms like they're lucky you showed up. And guess what? They are. Because someone like you, rare, wise, perceptive, and silent, is either a gift or a warning. And most of them treated you like the latter. So now, let them talk. Let them scramble. Let them drown in the tension they created, trying to keep up a lie you already saw through. You've already won. Chosen one. You just haven't said it out loud. And that silence, that's the final slap. Number 2, your intuition became the surveillance camera they didn't know was on. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who already knows the truth and chooses silence. They didn't fear your anger, they feared your memory. You didn't catch them red-handed. You caught them rehearsing the lie. When your intuition speaks, it doesn't stutter, and they know it. They thought you were just quiet. They thought your silence meant confusion. But what they failed to realize is that your silence wasn't emptiness, it was evidence. Calm, cold, and collected. You weren't missing details. You were collecting them. You weren't reacting. You were recording. You weren't naive. You are archiving their entire behavior file with the precision of someone who's been burned before and learned never to flinch again. You see, they talk about you because deep down they know. Your intuition caught receipts they hoped would stay buried. And worse, you didn't say a word. You let them bury themselves in a performance they thought was Oscar-worthy, not knowing you were sitting in the front row the whole time, popcorn in hand, taking notes on every false smile, every mood shift, every time they said, "Trust me," but couldn't look you in the eye. Imagine this. A thief walking past a camera they didn't know was recording. That's what your intuition was to them. Unblinking, watching, not accusing, just remembering. And when you didn't explode, when you didn't demand answers, when you didn't make a scene, that's when they panicked, because your calm didn't feel like peace to them. It felt like preparation. They'd try to rewrite the past. Now, it wasn't like that. They say you misunderstood, but they know better. And more importantly, you know better. You saw the exact moment they switched up. You felt the energy shift before they even opened their mouth. And you didn't need screenshots or text messages. Your spirit downloaded the truth instantly. And let's talk about that for a second. Your intuition doesn't just feel, it calculates. It tracks tone changes, body language, timing, and intentions with sniper-level accuracy. You don't need to eavesdrop. You sense when someone's words don't match their vibe. You know when someone suddenly gets friendly because they need something. You notice when a question is loaded, when a compliment is manipulative, when silence is strategy. And you don't always say it, but you never forget it. They know that now. That's why their voice gets shaky when they see you. That's why they try to get ahead of conversations that haven't even happened. That's why they're always explaining something you didn't ask. Because they know you've already figured it out. And they don't know how much that uncertainty. That's the chokehold you have on their subconscious. You want to know why your intuition scares them more than confrontation ever could? Because confrontation is loud, it's messy, it's predictable. But intuition is clean, sharp. It slices through fake energy like a blade through smoke. And it doesn't leave fingerprints. There's no scene, no yelling, just an awkward silence that feels like judgment even though you didn't say a word. Imagine this. You're sitting at a dinner table. Everyone's laughing, joking, putting on a show. But you're watching, you're scanning energy. One person makes a joke with an undertone of jealousy. Another gives a compliment laced with passive aggression. Nobody notices, but you clock it instantly. You catch the eyes that don't smile, the hug that feels cold. The silence after your win, you don't react. You just file it under. Got it? And that's what ruins them. Not that you exposed them, not that you got revenge, but that your energy moved. You started acting different, colder, smarter, like someone who knew and they felt it. Because when someone used to your warmth suddenly stops handing it out, people notice, and the guilty ones panic. You ever wonder why they talk so much about you now? Why? You're the subject of conversations in rooms you don't even enter anymore. It's because your presence made them uncomfortable, but your absence makes them terrified. When you were around, they had a chance to control the narrative. They could fake, manipulate, try to keep up appearances. But now they're stuck wondering what you figured out, when you figured it out, and who else you might have told. And that's what your intuition really is. A secret file, a quiet case folder filled with everything they thought they got away with. But the twist is, you don't even need to use it. The fear that you could is enough. That's power. That's what makes you dangerous. Not that you speak, but that you could, and it would end careers, relationships, reputations, but you just don't. You see, the chosen ones don't expose people out of spite. They expose themselves through guilt, paranoia, and desperation. Your only job is to keep walking. Because when you're this tapped in, silence is a weapon. Let them spiral trying to decode your calm. Let them panic every time your name gets mentioned. Let them talk. Every word is a scream from a guilty conscience. And don't second guess yourself. That moment you sensed the betrayal before it happened, you were right. That odd energy you felt when someone smiled too hard, you were right. That gut feeling that something didn't add up, you were always right. Your intuition doesn't lie, and the people who made you question it, they're the ones who should have been questioned from the start. Now you're at a point where your stillness speaks louder than their excuses. You don't chase explanations anymore. You stand in your truth, calm, solid, unbothered. And that's what scares them the most. You didn't just survive the games. You learned the rules, burned the playbook, and became the referee. So keep your head high, chosen one. Your intuition isn't a weakness. It's your weapon. A radar that saved you from disasters before they exploded. A compass that steered you away from snakes dressed as supporters. A silent witness to everything they thought was hidden. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them sweat in silence trying to figure out what you know, because the truth is, you already knew. And that's exactly why your name never left their mouths. Number 3, they obsess over you because you were the one they couldn't puppet. The moment you didn't flinch, the whole manipulation crumbled. They weren't expecting resistance. They were expecting rehearsal. You broke the game by refusing to pick up the controller. Their control only worked on people who didn't know they were being played, and you knew. Here's the hard truth. They can't stop talking about you because you were the one who didn't bite. You didn't fall for the fake smiles, the guilt trips, or the so-called misunderstandings. You didn't apologize for things you didn't do. You didn't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You didn't feed their ego. And to someone addicted to control, that's a death sentence. You shattered their system. Manipulators work like magicians. They need distraction, confusion, and control over the stage. But you saw the wires behind the illusion. You saw the switch in tone when things didn't go their way. You saw the love bombing, the silent treatments, your too sensitive gaslighting tactics, and you didn't dance to the tune that ruined them. Imagine a thief sneaking into a house only to realize the lights were already on and the owner was standing in the corner, arms folded, watching. That's what it felt like when they tried to play you. You weren't confused, you were waiting. And when they saw you weren't reacting like everyone else, the panic started. That's when the obsession began. Now they study you quietly, religiously. They replay every conversation. Why didn't it work on them? How did they know? Why won't they come back and fight like everyone else? Because you're not everyone else. You're the outlier, the glitch in their system, the one who didn't fold, didn't chase, didn't explain, just left. Your resistance forced them to face something they weren't ready for. Their power was fake. It only worked on those unaware. With you were locked and alert, done playing dumb just to keep the peace. You saw the game, understood the rules, and walked away without announcing it. That kind of exit, that's legendary. That's what keeps your name in rotation. They'll never forget the one person who saw through their mask and had the audacity to stay silent. Number 4, they're rewriting the story because you burned their script mid-scene. You were supposed to break down. Instead, you broke the cycle. They rehearsed your reaction. You gave them reality. The only thing they could manipulate was your past self. And that version doesn't exist anymore. When you stopped acting, their whole performance looked ridiculous. They had it all mapped out, didn't they? A perfect little storyline in their head where you'd cry on cue, rage when provoked, or chase after the crumbs they dropped like they were doing you a favor. They had scenes planned, dialogues rehearsed, emotional traps set. But when the moment came, you didn't play the role. You walked off the stage and let the whole production fall flat. No reaction, no breakdown, just silence and a look that said, "I'm not the one anymore." You see, your old self, the one that was still healing, still confused, still hoping for truth from wires, that version might have given them what they wanted. But the new you, the evolved you gave them closure without a conversation. You gave them clarity without confrontation. You gave them zero fuel. And that's what blew up their whole control system. That's why they talk now. Loud, constant, desperate. They've lost control of the narrative. And in their world, that's worse than losing you. So now they rewrite history, repaint scenes, and revise your character to fit a version of the story where they still look in control because they can't handle the truth. You didn't become cold. You became clear. You didn't disappear. You detached. Imagine this. A puppet master pulling strings only to realize the puppet cut the cords. That's what happened. You didn't respond emotionally, so they had nothing to twist. You didn't lash out, so they had nothing to weaponize. You healed, and that's what broke the spell. Now every word they speak about you is a rewrite. A frantic attempt to frame you as bitter, heartless, fake, distant, all because you didn't scream when they expected it. But let them talk. The people watching closely will notice one thing. The only person not spiraling is you. They lost their grip the moment you stopped giving them something to grip onto. Number 5, your existence alone exposed the rot in their soul. You didn't shame them. They revealed themselves trying to hide from your truth. They weren't threatened by what you said. They were threatened by what you are. Your presence became a mirror, and they couldn't handle their own reflection. You walked in with honesty, and they crumbled under the weight of their own performance. Let's get one thing straight. You didn't have to do anything dramatic to make them feel small. You didn't have to dig, expose, or humiliate. You just existed. That's it. You showed up in your raw, real, unfiltered truth, and that alone sent their whole fake identity into a meltdown. Because when someone is built on illusion, even a whisper of authenticity feels like an earthquake. You didn't break them. You revealed them. Every crack in their character, every shallow motive, every manipulative smirk, it all got louder the second you walked into the room. Because your energy isn't loud, it's clean. And clean energy makes dirty energy feel like it's covered in fluorescent lights. They were hoping no one would ever notice who they really are until you walked in and made the whole room feel different without saying a word. They call it gossip, but it's really a confession. Every jab, every rumor, every backhanded compliment, it's all just noise to cover the shame they felt standing next to someone who doesn't have to fake depth. You didn't call them out, but your energy did. You didn't humiliate them, but your peace did. You didn't say a single damn word, but the silence screamed louder than they could stand. Imagine this. Someone dressed in designer rags standing next to someone wearing simplicity but radiating integrity. That's what it felt like next to you. They had the costume. You had the core. They had applause. You had truth. And the contrast unbearable. You were consistent. They were calculated. You were rooted. They were reactive. And the worst part for them, you didn't even notice them as competition because they weren't, but they felt it. That quiet feeling of being exposed just by standing next to someone who isn't hiding. So now they run their mouths because it's the only thing they can control. They couldn't dim your light, so they scream into the darkness hoping someone listens. But truth doesn't need volume. You were the truth, and their collapse that was self-inflicted. Number 6, they're panicking because you see the snake before it even sheds. You don't need evidence. Your intuition is the warning shot. They wanted time to plot. You already saw the ending before they started. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive, and that difference wrecks them. Your silence isn't empty. It's surveillance with a smirk. They can't stand how you just know. You don't wait for lies to unravel. You don't need to catch them red-handed. You already read the vibe, clocked the motives, scanned the energy, and stored the truth before they even finished their sentence. That's what eats at them. You don't operate on proof, you operate on pattern recognition. And they can't manipulate someone who's already seen the playbook. You ever wonder why they get weird when you're around? Why they over-excel in things you didn't ask about? Why they suddenly shift their tone or watch your face mid-conversation because your presence feels like a lie detector test they didn't prepare for? You pick up the hesitation before the betrayal, the weird eye contact before the excuse, the sudden nice behavior right before the favor. They can't help but feel exposed because you see it all. And worse, you don't say a thing. Imagine this. They're playing chess with someone who already sees 6 moves ahead. That's you. And every time they try to bait you into reacting, you just smile like you've already seen how the game ends. That smile, that's the part that breaks them. They can't decode what you know or when you figured it out. All they know is that you know, and that's what fuels their obsession. Their gossip isn't conversation. It's a coping mechanism, a desperate attempt to feel some kind of control again. They don't talk about you because you're confusing. They talk because you're too clear. You dismantle lies without confrontation. You ruin manipulation without argument. And they don't know how to handle someone who doesn't need to fight to win. So now they spiral, whisper, project, panic, all because you move through their illusions like smoke, untouched, unbothered, unshaken. You didn't need to react. You already knew. And that kind of power, that's what keeps them awake. Number 7. You could flip the whole script and they know it. Power isn't always in what you say. Sometimes it's in what you refuse to. You're the vault they prayed would never crack. One sentence from you could set their whole mask on fire, and that's what keeps them sweating. You don't play God, but they act like you might. You sitting on gold, and they know it. Not the kind of gold you flaunt, but the kind that could crumble entire illusions if you ever decided to speak. You've seen the backroom deals, the sideways glances, the fake hugs, the shady shifts in loyalty. You've heard things they thought you forgot. You've witnessed moments they never imagined would circle back, and you said nothing. That's what's driving them insane. You don't walk around threatening people, but your silence feels like a loaded weapon. You're the person who could change the entire dynamic of a room with just a single truth, one sentence. That's all it would take. And the sickest part for them, you haven't even used it. You didn't go low. You didn't stoop. You didn't expose what you easily could have. You held it, carried it, buried it silently. Imagine this. A room full of liars pretending to be loyal, smiling like they're clean. Then you walk in, not saying a word, just existing, and suddenly the air shifts. Why? Because everyone knows you could destroy the script they've built if you ever decide you're done being quiet. Now they talk first, loud, frantic. They gossip to get ahead of the truth you never released. They twist the narrative before it has a chance to be revealed. They throw dirt on your name just in case you decide to throw the truth back. That's not confidence, that's fear management. And what fuels that fear? The fact that you're better than them. You didn't need revenge to feel powerful. You didn't need to ruin anyone to rise. You let the truth sit quietly in your back pocket like a fire you never lit. That restraint. That's God-tier control. That's dominance without destruction. And now they live in suspense. Every word they speak is laced with paranoia. Every rumor they spread is a scream for distraction because they know you could have ended them. You still could, and you just didn't. Number 8, you went quiet, and that's when they started to crumble. You weren't silent because you were weak. You were silent because you were weak. You were silent because you already won. Real power doesn't announce itself. It watches while everyone else exposes themselves. They thought you froze. You were just letting the truth come to you. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was surveillance. Let's clear something up right now. Your silence was never confusion. It was precision. It was patience with a blade behind it. While they were running their mouths, flexing false confidence and spinning stories, you were calculating, not emotional, not stuck, just dangerously observant. You weren't trying to be loud, you were trying to be accurate. And you were. They thought your lack of reaction meant they'd gotten away with it, that you didn't notice, that maybe you were too scared to speak, too unsure to act, too passive to confront. But that's because they've only ever dealt with people who panic in silence. You don't fold, you study. And by the time they realize that, the damage was already done to them. Imagine this. They think they're winning a game. Chest puffed up, mocking your quiet. But in reality, every word they've said, every move they've made, every slip-up they laughed off, you've got it cataloged, organized, tagged, and most importantly, you don't need to use any of it. Your silence already told the room who's really in control. They can't handle that. That's why they talk now, loud and messy. They invent reasons for your calm. They analyze your expression like it's a threat. They rehearse what they'll say next time they see you. Because your silence has weight. It exposes them without saying anything. It makes them second-guess their entire performance. You weren't avoiding the truth. You were letting the lies expose themselves. And they did loudly, desperately, publicly. You didn't lift a finger. You just let the illusion collapse under the weight of its own weakness. That's not weakness. That's surgical precision. Your silence is the filter. It separates the real from the performative, the loyal from the opportunistic, and the ones who couldn't survive it. They were never solid to begin with. Let them talk. You've already spoken, just without words. And that silence, it was the loudest checkmate they never saw coming. Number 9, they talk so much because you don't fit their script anymore. They studied the old version of you like a manual. Then the system updated and left them clueless. You weren't unpredictable. They were just too lazy to evolve with you. Their control didn't fail because you changed. It failed because you grew. When you stopped reacting, they lost their only strategy. They thought they had you figured out. Same reactions, same patterns, same triggers. They thought if they pushed the right emotional buttons, you'd dance the way you used to. Beg, break down, explain, overgive, stay silent just to keep the peace. But plot twist, that version of you doesn't live here anymore. And the moment you stop showing up as the old you, their entire playbook caught fire. Now they're scrambling, confused, gossiping, not because you're some mystery, but because they built their power around predicting your pain. And now you don't flinch, you don't entertain. You don't play the role they rehearsed for you. You became unreadable, calm, dangerous. And to someone who manipulates through predictability, that is a complete collapse. Imagine this. They walked into a chess game with your old moves memorized only to realize you're now playing a whole different game. Different pieces, different rules, and worst of all, you're not even sitting at the same table. That's the kind of shift that makes people spiral. You see, their control never came from actual power. It came from knowing who you used to be. But you evolved, you healed. You upgraded your responses, elevated your boundaries, and stopped explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. That quiet shift, it triggered chaos on their end. They talk now because they're trying to regain control the only way they know how, by creating a version of you that can manage. In conversations and lies and whispered stories, because facing who you become would force them to admit they have no idea how to reach you anymore. Let them analyze the past while you keep building a future they'll never be part of. You don't owe them the old, you just because they train themselves to manipulate it. That model's obsolete and they can't handle the upgrade. Number 10, you became the mirror. They couldn't lie to you. You didn't destroy them. Their own reflection did. Your presence turned their mask into glass. They don't hate you. They hate the version of themselves that shows up when you walk in. You're not triggering them. The truth is, you didn't expose anyone. You didn't name names, raise your voice, or put their secrets on blast. All you did was show up authentic, self-aware, and unapologetically whole. And that was enough to cause a full-on identity crisis in people who built their lives around pretending. You didn't bring drama. You brought clarity. And clarity is lethal to people who live in delusion. You're a mirror, not the soft, flattering kind. The brutal, unfiltered kind that shows every crack, every lie, every faked emotion they tried to pass off as real. That's why they talk. That's why they spiral. Because your very existence forces them to see what they've spent years avoiding themselves. Imagine someone who's avoided mirrors their whole life. Suddenly they stand next to you and everything they've been hiding starts screaming back at them. The envy, the insecurity, the projection, the fake smiles. It's all right there, reflected in your calm, collected energy, and they can't handle it. So what do? They attack the mirror. They talk about you like you're the problem, not because you hurt them, but because they can't stand what you reflect. You don't remind them of their truth. You remind them of the gap between who they say they are and who they really are. And that gap, it burns. That's what makes you dangerous. You don't need to argue, confront, or expose. You just exist. And that alone brings every fake narrative crashing down. They don't gossip to insult you, they gossip to distract from the discomfort you awaken in them. They want others to see you through a distorted lens, so they don't have to admit the one they're using to see themselves is shattered. You are the reminder of what's real, of what's unshakable, of what they could be if they stopped performing and started healing. But until they do, they'll keep talking, and your silence will keep showing them exactly who they are. Number 11. You broke them when you stopped asking to be seen. They weren't mad you walked away. They were mad you never looked back. You didn't stop needing them out of rebellion. You stopped because you remembered who you are. Nothing threatens insecure people more than someone who validates themselves. You didn't fall. You stepped off their pedestal. And they've been trembling ever since. They expected you to chase, to beg, to prove your worth, like it was a job interview just to earn their half-baked approval. They were banking on your insecurity, feeding off the idea that you'd keep showing up just to be chosen. But then you flipped the script. You stopped asking. You stopped explaining. You stopped looking for permission to exist. And that was the kill shot to their ego. It wasn't your exit that ruined them. It was the fact that you didn't need an audience for it. You didn't announce your power shift. You just owned it quietly, fully, like someone who finally realized they were never meant to kneel in the first place. That's when everything collapsed on their end, because their whole illusion of control relied on your desire for validation. And once that was gone, so were they. Imagine this. They had you on a leash made of false praise and temporary acceptance. But you weren't a pet. You were a lion pretending not to notice the cage was open the whole time. And one day you simply walked out. No growl, no roar, just silence and freedom. That's what they can't recover from. Your independence exposed just how fragile their sense of self really was. They needed to feel superior. They needed to be needed. And you ruined the game when you showed them you were fine without it. You weren't rebelling, you were rising. And they never saw that kind of quiet power before. Now they talk. Not because they've moved on, but because you did. Not because they're confident, but because they're injured. They tell stories, spin narratives, try to make sense of why the one they thought would break just didn't. You never needed their pedestal. You were the platform, and once you remembered that, their illusion shattered and they've been picking up pieces of their pride ever since. Number 12, you knew everything and still didn't swing. That's what broke them. They expected revenge. You gave them indifference. That's what destroyed them. You didn't match their chaos. You exposed it by refusing to join. Willpower isn't loud, it's calm. And that calm is what makes them spiral. They can't handle that you saw their truth and still chose not to burn them down. You caught everything, the lies, the shade, the switches in tone, the loyalty that came with conditions. And they know you did. They felt it. But instead of exploding, instead of reacting, instead of dragging them through the mud like they deserve, you just chose peace. And that's what shattered them. Not the confrontation they prepared for, but the silence they never saw coming. They were ready for a fight, ready for drama, ready to gaslight, to twist your words, to make you look unstable. That's their world. Chaos, confusion, control. But you didn't take the bait. You didn't enter the ring. You just stood there still, like someone who knows exactly what happened and decided to rise above it. And that stillness, that unbothered clarity, it's tearing them apart. You didn't ignore what they did. You processed it fully, quietly, like someone putting the final piece in a puzzle and then calmly walking away. You didn't need revenge. The truth already hit them harder than anything you could say. And now they're spinning, talking, projecting because they don't understand how someone could see their full darkness and still not attack. Imagine a villain who expected to be exposed, but instead got outgrown. That's what happened. You saw behind their mask and didn't yank it off. You just smiled and let them wear it, knowing it's getting heavier by the day. Your refusal to react made them face themselves. And most people, they can't survive that. Now they talk not to discredit you, but to distract themselves from the guilt, from the fact that you held the truth like a sword and never swung. They can't figure out why you didn't stoop to their level. But here's the truth. You didn't match their energy. You ended it quietly, permanently, with peace as your power. And that kind of strength, they'll never understand, but they'll never stop talking about it either. Number 13, you see too much, and that's why they can't relax around you. You don't dig for dirt. The truth just surfaces around you. They aren't uncomfortable because you confront them. They're uncomfortable because you clocked them. Your gift isn't intuition, it's precision. And they can feel it the second you walk in. They talk about you because silence next to you feels like an interrogation. You don't force anything. You don't go looking for secrets. You don't interrogate, and you damn sure don't play detective. But somehow the truth still shows up like it owes you something. Your awareness is surgical, sharp, clean, and constant. It has no off switch. You catch the tone that doesn't match the words. You hear the hesitation behind the smile. You notice the delay in their reaction, the shift in their energy, the crack in their script. And you don't even flinch. You just know. And that alone is enough to terrify anyone hiding behind performance. People living dishonestly can feel your perception before you even say a word. It's like your presence activates every alarm in their nervous system. Suddenly, they're adjusting their posture, watching their words, over-explaining things you never questioned, not because you asked, but because your silence already told them, "I see you." Imagine being a magician mid-performance and realizing the person in the front row already knows how the trick ends. That's what it feels like being around you. Their illusion doesn't work anymore and they can't handle that, so what do? They gossip, they label you as too intense, too deep, or paranoid. Not because it's true, but because you noticed something they didn't want noticed. Your gift of perception exposes people by default. Not because you weaponize it, but because you embody it. You live with your eyes open. You listen with more than your ears. You trust what others ignore. And that makes you impossible to manipulate. So now they whisper, they warn others. They invent stories to distance themselves from what you've already seen. Not because you're dangerous, but because the truth is. And when someone carries truth the way you do, calm, clear, and unshaken, liars will always try to turn the spotlight somewhere else. Let them talk. You've already seen everything they're trying to hide. And that chosen one is why they talk. You didn't play the game, you ended it without a word. You didn't fight for attention. You became unforgettable by outgrowing their grip. Every whisper, every rumor, every sideways glance is just proof that your existence cracked their control. You weren't born to be understood by the shallow. You were made to disrupt everything fake by simply being real. If this message slapped the truth into your chest, then show love back. Like the video, hit that subscribe button, and drop 77 in the comments to let the world know you're done being quiet. Share this with your fellow chosen ones. The world's watching.